when I look back and when I was touring with Pink Floyd, and staying in these, different big tours that I was doing, and, living this very high end kind of lifestyle, traveling in private jets and, staying in five-star hotels and singing in front of hundreds of thousands of people. It all looked very glamorous on the surface, and it was in many ways. But deep down, I was really struggling. And, carry those feelings of imposter syndrome. Oh, I don't belong here. I'm not really good enough. And oh my God, wait, they're going to find out. People are going to find out that I'm really not this good and I really shouldn't be here. I really had a hard time owning my accomplishments.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about the tension between outer success and inner struggle. I'm delighted to welcome Machan Taylor. Machan is a vocalist, recording artist, performer, composer, and educator whose career took her to the highest levels of the music industry, singing with Pink Floyd, Sting, Foreigner, Pat Benatar, George Benson, and others. She is also the author of Naked Out Loud. You can reach Machan at her website, machantaylor.com, and on social media, and I'll include those links in the show notes. Welcome, Machan. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thank you so much, Linda. Great to be here.
Thank you. And, if I can just go back in time a little bit, before you had all these amazing experiences and attained this amazing professional prestige, you were a little girl. And you were relocated from Japan to suburban America. And I would love to hear your story.
Well, it's a long story, and a story of a different era in America, of course. My father was American military. He was in the Army and was stationed in Yokohama, Japan after the war, after World War II. So I'm a war baby, World War II war baby. And my mother, who was Japanese, full-blooded Japanese, was a singer, actually. And after the war, she was singing in nightclubs around Tokyo. And she actually had a jazz band that played on the Army base in the Officers Club, which my father just so happened to manage at that time. So that's how my parents met, which, is really kind of a very 1940s romantic Hollywood story. So my parents met in Japan. My father eventually decided to retire from active duty, and he was then inactive in the Army, and he had trouble finding work in Japan as an American. So my father found a job in New York City. He was from New Jersey. And so my parents then, at that point, decided to come to America. So it was my older sister, who was 9 years older than I, and myself. I was 4.5 years old at the time when we immigrated to America. And, when I go back, and the story is in my book, when I had to go back and kind of research, we traveled on a ship, on an Army ship, to get to San Francisco, and then took a train across to New York, from San Francisco to New York, and ended up in New Jersey. So it was definitely culture shock for my mother and my older sister. And, from what I remember, it was very, very traumatic. I was very close to my grandmother. I loved my grandmother dearly. And, Japan was my first impression of the world, my first language, the first tastes of food, of culture, of everything. And then suddenly at 4.5 years old, it was gone. And I had to, along with my mother and my sister, you know, figure out how to live in this strange new environment. And, it was a very different time in America. There were still a lot of very discriminating feelings against the Japanese after World War II. So there were a lot of experiences of discrimination that I had, that my mother had, my older sister had when we came here, and that was to me, that was sort of the original imprint of trauma in my life, and then it sort of went from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And those first traumas, they just stay with us. And
Yes.
sometimes when we think of trauma, we think of something terrible that has happened to us. And that absolutely is a trauma. But the trauma of that shock, that change, that having the rug pulled out from under you, that this is who I am, this is my home, this is my grandmother, this is my food, this is life.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be transported to another place where everything is different. And not only
Yes.
different, but you are a beautiful child who was born out of love from two people from countries who were once at war and created peace. And there was peace, hopefully, in your home. And yet that peace did not exist everywhere. You felt the
Yeah.
echoes of the past, of those feelings of animosity. And I'm sorry, I can feel it.
Mm. Yeah. You put that in such a beautiful way. It took me a long time to actually uncover this moment in my life as sort of the original trauma in my life, because I think, us human beings are very resilient and we're very adaptable. And most people will, we all just try to figure out a way how to survive, how to get on with things. And I think that my mother in particular, coming from a very different generation, and also being a Japanese person, she was never very uh, forthcoming with her emotions, with her feelings about what was happening. And neither was my sister. So I kind of, I had to figure out how to bury those feelings of pain and disappointment, and feeling awkward, and feeling like I didn't belong, and never feeling enough, never feeling American enough, never feeling good enough. All these, feelings that was a result of that trauma that I carried with me all through my life, really. And it took me many, many years of therapy and work on myself to figure out how to untangle all of that, and to find a sense of understanding and peace within myself.
Thank you for being willing to share that. I think it's so important that we're able to hear and understand. And I imagine there are people who can hear this and think, oh, then it's okay for me to be able to feel what I feel. It is so normal to bury. You use the word bury, and it's so applicable. It puts a mental image in my mind, and I know I've done it too. It's like I'm not allowed to have these feelings. They are wrong, they are bad, they are confusing, they are fill in the blank. So I'm going to bury them far, far, far beneath the earth, far beneath me. And we hope that that means that they go away, but they don't.
No,
They're
no.
still there. And the crazy thing is to hear you say this, and yet we're in your story at the beginning, and yet here we are many years later, and you have experienced amazing success. And so many of us feel like if I could just achieve this goal or this status or this whatever, then those feelings that are buried inside of me will stop hurting me. They'll stop bothering me. They'll go away. And somehow it doesn't. It doesn't
No.
negate in any way, shape, or form the success. But if the success is intended to fill the hole, it doesn't it doesn't satisfy.
No, and many of us go through life thinking, okay, well, if I have enough money, if I have enough success, if I'm pretty enough, if I'm skinny enough, if I'm whatever enough, that it's going to heal those deep, dark internal wounds that never go away unless they're really addressed and confronted and worked with. And I think that's the big delusion that our society has, because we're all so subject to being influenced by social media or commercials or whatever the case may be, thinking, oh, well, if I have that dress, or if I, if I have that makeup, or if I have enough money, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to be okay. And it can be a band-aid, all those things, success and money can be a band-aid, and temporarily maybe make you feel like, oh, well, I'm doing pretty well. But all of those buried feelings and the shadow side of ourselves that have not been taken care of will eventually emerge and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, remember me. Remember me. I need some attention here. Otherwise, I am going to wreak havoc on your life.
And it will. Because
Yes.
it speaks, and it can even speak physically. There were a couple words you said that just struck me, and one was never, and the other one was unless. It never goes away. Oh my gosh, if we just stopped right there. Hopelessness, the end, game over. I had an original trauma and now my life is ruined. Not true.
No.
It is there unless we address it and give it the attention that it needs and heal it. And
Yes.
then it's okay. It's, oh, this is my story. This is what happened. And I'm okay. And I like myself. And I'm whole, I'm complete, and I can be successful and do all those things that I wanted, but I'm doing them because it brings me joy, not because I'm trying to fill a hole in my heart.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly right. It's interesting. I'm going to be 70 in September. And when you've lived this many years, and hopefully I have many more to go, but now at this point in my life, as I look back on all of the work that I've done, all of my story, the whole arc of my story, which is part of my book, um, I can now embrace all of the traumas, because that was the story of me coming to America was just the first trauma, and then there were others. And my dad was an alcoholic, and there were just so many other things that happened, which does happen in many people's lives, right? Life is like a roller coaster ride, and there are ups and downs all the time. But I would say that now, when I look back on my story, I'm so grateful for all of the lessons that all of the difficulties brought to me, and helped me to become the person that I am now. And if I had not gone through all the things that I have gone through, I would not be able to sit here now in my being in this present moment and feel the kind of joy and fulfillment that I'm able to finally embrace. Because it took me a long time to even own up to my successes when I was younger, because of what was going on underneath for me, because I had not addressed my internal pain, when I was in my 20s and 30s. It took me a long time to really get to this point where I feel like, okay, yeah, it's not so bad. But it took me going through all of that, the whole story, good and bad, and then actually doing the work um, to heal those wounds. So that's the responsibility that we all have to ourselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. What a beautiful way to put it. This is our responsibility. And the ups and downs, everything is our teacher. And the funny thing is, we pay money to ride a roller coaster because that thrill of that feeling. And yet in our lives, we're hoping everything is just smooth sailing, and it doesn't work that way. And yet,
Yeah.
everything can be our teacher, the good and the bad. And I'm so grateful that you're at a place where you can feel the fulfillment that you have earned. You mentioned that you struggled with owning your success. Will you
Hmm.
tell us about that a little bit? I mean, it's like you made it, and it didn't sound like it felt like you made it.
No, not at all. When I look back and when I was touring with Pink Floyd, and staying in these, different big tours that I was doing, and living this very high end kind of lifestyle, traveling in private jets, and staying in 5-star hotels and singing in front of hundreds of thousands of people. It all looked very glamorous on the surface, and it was in many ways, but deep down I was really struggling, and carry those feelings of imposter syndrome. Oh, I don't belong here. I'm not really good enough. And oh my God, wait, they're going to find out. People are going to find out that I'm really not this good, and I really shouldn't be here. And it's so crazy when I say it now, because I'm in such a different place now. But I did. I really had a hard time owning my accomplishments, and therefore, I think when we don't work on healing those injuries, it prevents us from having greater successes in our lives, because it does become a big obstacle in many ways when we don't take care of those injuries, those internal emotional and spiritual injuries.
What was the catalyst that said there's something more?
Well, I think I always felt this sense of consciousness about um, the duality of what was happening in my life. Okay, here I am having all this success, but I feel horrible inside. So I was always aware that something was not in balance in myself. But very quite honestly, when I toured with Pink Floyd in the 1980s, right, it was a very different era, and I was very young. Well, I was in my 20s, going into my 30s, and you know, drugs and alcohol were a very big part of that scene. And so I think I definitely masked a lot of my pain, like a lot of people do. It's very easy to push down those emotions with drugs and alcohol, or whatever your drug of choice is, whether it's being a shopaholic or a rageaholic, or, whatever the case may be. There are a lot of ways to numb ourselves to the reality and to the truth of what we need to face. And I think I just finally got to a point where after going through a very difficult first marriage, and then ending up with a really great guy later on, my current husband, who I've been with for a long time now. um, I realized probably in my 40s that things really really need to change. And then that was a process. It's been a process, right? It never happens overnight. It's a lot of work. It's like unraveling the onion, or digging deep down into different layers of the soil bed, whatever metaphor you want to use. But, it's taken me a long time to get to where I am now. And it's not over. I'm still working on things. It's never over.
And that's okay because this is life and we're always becoming. But I'm
Yes,
so proud of you for being able to get to the point where you were beyond the desire to mask and got to a point where I choose to heal. The desire to mask, and I love that you mentioned that we have a lot of different ways we can do it. There's so many things we can do to numb and to avoid. And
mhm,
some of them are drugs and alcohol. Some of them can just be flipping through your phone. Something so simple, it fits in the
absolutely.
palm of your hand and is pretty much free. But they don't heal our souls. They
That's right.
prevent us from becoming the person that we need to become. And when you're
Hmm.
in a position of success where you have the means to be able to afford alcohol and drugs, you can just keep going in that direction. And so I'm so proud of you for being able to set that aside and say, no, there's something better for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, yeah, we live in a culture that is, to me, constantly trying to mask uh, the reality of our lives. Um, when I was choosing the title of my book, Naked Out Loud, it really felt like to me that I was really putting myself out into the world in a very vulnerable way. And I never actually imagined publishing a book, but it just sort of one thing led to another over a course of almost 3 years, 2.5, 3 years of writing and journaling. And but when I finally chose the title, I really feel like it. What I'm saying is there is no shame in telling the truth of who we are. And I really believe that we need more of this in our lives, in our world. I love the work of Brene Brown and talking about vulnerability and how it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. It takes a lot of courage to actually speak our truth and talk about our pain, talk about our shame or whatever the case may be. And I think if we had more of that in the world with each other, we would be in a much better place.
I agree completely, which is why we're having this conversation and why I do this all the time, because we need to be able to create a culture where it is safe, acceptable, even normal to allow ourselves to be imperfect, to be human, and that there
Yes.
isn't shame in being less than perfect. In fact, there's courage in admitting that we are. And once we admit that we are, then we can progress. And it fills that hole. I just, the wisdom that you share is just amazing. I love the title of your book. It just puts that visual image in the feelings in our head of that our vulnerability, people knowing the real us is being exposed. We're naked. I have this mask that I've been wearing forever, and to take it off, I you might not like the real me. And that's really, really scary because
Yes.
I want to be liked. I want to be liked. We all want to be liked. And when we have the courage, and I love you mentioned courage a few times, the courage to share the reality, I think it makes all the difference. I had a friend who said, if you want to impress people, tell them about your successes, tell them all the wonderful things you've done. If you want to influence people, then you share your weaknesses. And
Oh,
that
wow.
lets
I
us
like that.
have a relationship that is deeper. It's not just superficial. I'm not trying to impress you. I would like you to like me. I really would. But I would like you to like the real me. And if I have to fake it for you to like me, I'm sorry, but you're not the kind of friend that I want. And I'm going to let you go. Does that make sense?
That's so good. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. I'm going to remember that. That's really good. So true. So true.
Do you want to share anything about what you're teaching now? You're teaching at NYU?
Yes, I teach voice and performance at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music. It's part of the Tisch Performing Arts program. And that is a crazy story how I ended up a teacher, because that was not in my game plan at all. Um, but basically, what happened was when I came off tour with Sting in 2000, there was the Screen Actors Guild strike and national strike, and I'm a union member. And my husband, who was just my boyfriend at the time, he had just written this huge commercial for Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was supposed to be a huge campaign, and I was singing on it. And then the strike happened, and we couldn't do the commercial, and he
Oh,
lost a lot of money. I lost money. We were all union members, and we had to turn down union work. So at that point, I knew that I didn't want to go on tour again. I was, after certain things that had happened on that Sting tour, I wanted a change of life. And I took out an ad in the Village Voice paper, which was a very popular New York City paper. And I put an ad out for voice lesson, voice teacher available. And I started getting students, and one thing led to another. And, lo and behold, down the road, I decided to go back to school. I got my bachelor's, I got my master's in my 50s. And then I got a job at NYU, and I've been there for like 12 years now. So it's been fantastic.
how amazing would it be to be your student and the stories that you're able to share? Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
speaking of
I love it.
stories, would you mind sharing the story of your name? You said that there was a story behind that.
Oh, yes. So my name, Machan, and if you were Japanese, you would say Machan, say it with a slightly different intonation, is the name that my grandmother called me, that my Japanese family called me. And it came from the root of my given name, my original given name, by my mother, who was an Anglophile, and she loved the royal family, and she named me Margaret. So
Oh,
Margaret is my original name. And I never felt like a Margaret. It just never resonated with me. And so at a certain point, quite some time ago, it's got to be 30 years now, I legally changed my name to Ma
oh,
Chan. Yeah.
okay. So it's legal.
So yeah, so Chan is like an honorific, and it's for family and people that are very familiar, and you can take someone's first name. Like you could be Lin Chan
Okay.
or Linda Chan if we were good friends and very familiar. Otherwise, in Japanese, there's different levels of formality in the language. So I would really, since we're just meeting, I would call you Bjork San, because that is the formal and more respectful way to address someone, is with their last name and san. So Chan is an honorific that is familiar. Does that make sense?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And you incorporated that into your legal name. And that's
I d-
almost like an invitation for I mean, strangers even to be familiar, to be part of you, to be I don't know, welcomed and accepted by you, and you to be welcomed and accepted by them. That's fascinating. I'm going to chew on that one for a minute. That is
well,
beautiful.
it's the name my grandmother called me. And my Japanese family. It's the original name that I, remember from my childhood in Japan. So it always felt right to me. So yeah, eventually
When
I just,
someone says that correctly, it brings that love from your grandmother back into your heart and to
yeah,
bring that family, that connection. Yeah,
yeah.
John.
Yeah,
Really
it's
beautiful.
very special. It's very special for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that.
of
This has
course.
been so delightful. Is there anything else you would like to make sure that we cover before we close today?
No, I'm just so happy that there are people like you out in the podcast world, you know, talking about these issues of trauma and healing and just the human condition, you know, and just the reality of who we are as human creatures, and that it is possible to find joy and happiness and fulfillment in life in a real authentic kind of way, but it is a responsibility that we owe to ourselves, and that it's no one else's responsibility. It's not your parents' responsibility, no matter how old you are or young you are. It's not for your spouse or anyone else to take care of that for yourself, that it's our responsibility as individuals to do the work. So thank you for giving voice to that.
Thank you. That was beautifully said. And thank you for visiting with me today.
Thanks so much, Linda. Take care.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by John Geddes. He said, "If you want your own distinctive voice, you first have to become someone." Today, I invite our listeners to find your own voice and claim your own identity. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.